and we have a few irrefutable facts. Iriyamalenko on the banks of the Catawba River. She is dead from asphyxiation. She is murdered. She's murdered with items that she brought there with her. Those are facts.
Were any of these doors open when they found her?
The jet skiers claim that both the doors were open.
That takes a hell of a strong person. Asphyxiation takes a hell of, it's not an instant thing neither. It takes a lot of muscle power to kill that person. Struggling too. Struggling. You know, with her feet kicking and struggling. It will take him 5 minutes for at least 5 minutes for her to die.
What's going on here? I mean, well, wait a minute. Does that fit, or does that just like not fit at all?
I believe that she was accosted and she was killed.
You find what you believe are 120 pieces, only to realize it's a 500-piece puzzle. And then you go out and get 300 pieces, and you realize it's an 1,000-piece puzzle. One thing it does do is it makes you want answers.
A lot of times, getting at the truth is not a straight line. It's not really easy.
Well, here we are. I've studied the maps, I've reviewed the reports that were out there, and now I'm going to trace her steps that day in May 2008. And today is coincidentally May 5. That's a day to remember in this story. And finally the day has come when we can actually trace the path that Ira took, or test the paths that she took. We remember the words of Dr. Watson. Attention
to detail is everything.
Looking with eyes wide open.
Well, it needs to start with nobody having a theory at all. You know, you don't have a theory, you have a body. It's the same as an investigative reporter starting on a story. If I have a theory or a narrative, that's going to skew. You know, if I'm looking for, you know,
We have to start without a theory. But today, we actually trace her steps. I know the address of the bank where she was first seen on camera. That morning, before the bank, she was seen on campus, presumably taking tests, apparently.
What is it we're assuming? Are we assuming she drove herself? It's reasonable to assume that she drove herself there. We don't really know that. What if somebody else drove her there? You know, we assume that she was killed, what, in the driver's seat? So we assume that she drove there alone? I mean, you know, how do we know that? How do we know somebody wasn't in the passenger seat? Somebody wasn't in the back seat? You know, how do we know that she wasn't the passenger?
What are the facts? What do we know? Have a completely open mind. I think we can all agree that when there's been a tragedy, a murder, the last steps of the victim are critical. Not only that day, but the previous days as well. Here, coincidentally, it's May 5. So we are focusing on the day of. But remember, just a couple days before May 5 was her birthday. It was 2 or 3 days, I can't remember exactly, but that was a special time period about which little has been made known, publicly anyway. And those details could be critical. How? Well, we don't know.
To me, everything about this case in particular revolves around context, or any case. Just like an archaeologist can't just take something in a museum case and tell you that much about it. Everything about the context of where something is found establishes its meaning. And so if you take one piece of physical evidence outside of a context, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
But in the words of Dr. Watson, the idea is to investigate the facts first and see where those lead.
Are we assuming she was killed in the driver's seat or passenger seat?
We know that some of the reports have her going from the bank to the Goodwill and then to Jackson's Java. And other reports have her going from the bank to Jackson's Java to Goodwill. But I would say that the majority of reports have her going from the bank to the Goodwill, then the last stop at Jackson's Java. So we'll trace that route and ask the same questions that Dr. Watson would ask. Given everything we know, does that fit? I've heard varying reports that she lived on campus, at campus housing, and she may well have lived off campus. But what we're doing right now is we're starting without a theory. If we want to follow her steps that morning and we're not sure about exactly where she went, let's start with what we know.
Are we assuming that was where she died and the body wasn't moved? Everything is about how do we know what we know? 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 How do we know?
Of course, when we look at a story, some people have said that there's two sides to every story, but then again, when you know that in certain criminal cases, there's often witnesses. Each witness may have a different story. One saw a green car, one saw a beige car, one saw a red car. Maybe they were standing under a different light or a light pole or from a different vantage point. So I guess theoretically it could be argued that how many people were there to describe the story? And that might logically tell you how many sides to the story there actually are. If there was 10 witnesses, there might be 10 sides to the story. So we naturally, being exposed to the public, we normally hear only a couple sides of the story. He's guilty. This is how it happened. Or he's innocent. This is why. And those are prevalent stories, or prevalent sides to this story. But how many more sides to this story may there be?
I don't know if she was killed there. She was killed there. She was killed there. She was killed there. She was killed there.
She was seen on campus that morning. She was next seen at the bank. That is by everybody's account. So in that sense, it fits. But where did she go from there? We don't know. But sometimes just following the steps kind of gives you a sense of the territory. Maybe something comes to mind. Maybe another question. Maybe an answer.
How do we know that she wasn't the passenger and that somebody killed her and put her there? Put her there. 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 Put her there.
Raining again today. But I'd be lying if I'm saying I'm not looking forward to going to the bank, going to the Goodwill, traveling that path that we know that she took in her car, going to Jackson's Java area, seeing the layout of the land. Maybe something will click. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll just lead to more questions. Currently, I'm in the south end of Charlotte. I'll be moving up to I-85 and then head directly east. You'll recall that 85 is what cuts the highway that goes all around Charlotte. It was I-85 that she would have taken from the school area to the last place that she was seen on camera, and that was the YMCA in Belmont. And in the words of Dr. Watson, we may be able to test if something dawns on us. But for now, we head to the place where, by all accounts, she was seen after being seen on campus. And that's the bank. I'm on 85 headed east towards the campus. It was the campus area. That's where she was seen that morning. The bank is at the campus area. The Goodwill is just right by the campus area. Jackson's job was right by the campus area. Turning off from 85 onto 49 north, which just goes right in front of turns into University Boulevard, which goes right in front of the school. There's something hallowed about these grounds after you've looked at all the maps and you've read all the reports. There's an intangible energy about actually going there, experiencing where she was that morning, trying to perceive any clues. You never know when something might dawn on you. You know, sometimes pieces float around in your mind for a while and it just doesn't make sense. And then something happens and all the pieces come together. It just dawns on you. And I don't know if there's any way to speed up that process. I mean, anybody who's listened to true crime for a while knows that, you know, some of these cases go on for years. It could be, you know, decades. And then something happens. Somebody comes forward. Somebody says something that somebody else says. Triggers something in somebody else's mind. And then that person may have a dawning experience. Hearing something together with all the facts in their mind triggers something that just dawns on them. It's sort of a mystical process. You wonder, why does it work like that? If there was a God in heaven, why wouldn't he want justice right away? I mean, some of these detectives, you listen to these true crime stories, and some of these detectives, after they've been to the crime scene, after they've notified the families, it becomes personal. I mean, and they'll admit, you know, there's always one or two cases in their careers that they carry with them. And to some, it becomes an obsession to find the truth. And after years and years and years, there may be one little piece, just one little thing that somebody remembers, or there was a relative of the first perpetrator who knew something, who never wanted to speak but now believes it's time to come forward. There may be somebody out there right now, and that's what's going through their mind. Can you speed up that process? I'm not certain. I guess experience shows that it takes patience and determination and a belief, I think a belief that what may now be unknown can be revealed. I think it takes a little faith. That intangible navigation system deep within our souls. How much faith do you have? And not to put anybody on the spot in a derogatory or negative way. It's a sincere question. Some people have a lot of patience. Some people have none. Some people have more than others, but not a lot.
And a lot of times, the vast majority of murders, this not being one of them, are pretty straightforward. Someone was robbing someone. There's an old defense attorney in Toledo, Ohio, when I worked there.
Now I've pulled into the bank parking lot, just like she would have done. And she actually went inside the bank. I'm sure at that point there were ATM machines on the outside. So one asked the question, why was she going inside the bank? She could have pulled through the drive-in ATM lines. This was back in 2008, and pulled money out or made a deposit. It kind of lends itself perhaps into thinking that maybe she went in to make a deposit and she needed immediate cash back. At least that's one theory.
Murder is an assault, an assault, an assault, an assault. Is an assault where someone. Murder is an assault where someone dies. Where someone dies. Where someone dies. Where someone dies. Where someone dies.
best guy in the state, named Joe Neff. Well, they did a long series about this whole business about time of death.
But we're here at the credit union and it's a little bit before 10, and just for the sake of continuity, I'm going to wait till 10 o'clock to go into the bank, and I'm going to ask for Jane Fisher. Jane Fisher, we'll talk about the trial here as we move through this story, but she was the person who testified at the original trial that the images that were pulled off the bank surveillance system were indeed that of Ira Yarmolenko. She was asked during trial, do you know what type of transaction she was engaged in? She didn't know. Why didn't she know? She was never asked to know. When asked under cross-examination by defense counsel. Apparently, she may have been some sort of supervisor here. She'd been working at the bank for 13 years back in 2008. I wonder if she's still here. She verified that the surveillance videos that captured Ira that morning indeed came off of the camera system that she was aware of. The actual footage had to come from the main headquarters in Raleigh, North Carolina. I don't know if that's a fact that may help us eventually. I'm not sure. But here we are at the bank.
You know, we're being told a little fairy tale. Some people are devils, some people are angels.
And I should really follow up with Dr. Watson on that point, because I guess initially Mark Carver, who was convicted for Ira's murder, certainly and metaphorically, no doubt, was being portrayed in the press as the devil, and metaphorically, Ira as the angel. But now that the Innocence Project has gotten involved and has won Mark Carver a new trial, he's now more or less being portrayed in the press as the angel. Dr. Watson's comments were gathered shortly after Mark Carver had won that new trial. I wonder who he's talking about.
Because each element of the investigative process that we've considered lock solid is kind of crumbling.
I'm looking through my notes of Dr. Watson's interview. Start without a theory. Given everything that we know regarding the defendant and what's been published and everything like, does it fit that she went from the bank to the Goodwill to Jackson's Java? Does it fit that she took some other path? Well, we don't know. We're going to start without a theory. Can we obtain corroboration of whatever we find out? Is there anything that corroborates a particular route? Is there anything that contradicts that? It couldn't be true because. Question the experts, question authority. The more powerful, the more scrutiny they deserve. Look at the context of the facts that you find. Are they facts that seem to be true given the context of where you discovered the information? In regards to autopsies start the questions. Attention to detail is everything. To be able to see things with clear eyes. Remember those words.
Let's go see if Jan Fisher's here.
Good, how are you? Good. I may have checked with you before, but I was looking for a Jan Fisher. Right. I'm doing a follow-up story on a case back in 2008. She testified in trial. I'm an investigative journalist.
Jan Fisher.
I think at that time she'd been at this branch for like 13 years or something like that.
Yeah, she's at the Commonapolis branch on Coldwater Ridge Drive.
Coldwater Ridge Drive? Okay.
And she is in the office today. He won't come up and see her. You can give him.
Do you know if the drive-through was always here since 2008?
Yes.
It's always
Yeah,
been
it's
since.
always been here.
Okay. Normally, because she testified that when the person who's came in to the bank, they did a transaction inside, and I'm thinking normally that's like a deposit or something like that.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah, but the drive-in has always been.
It's always been here. Okay. So, for some reason, she chose to use the walk-in facility. So, well, I'm assuming that's one thing Jan didn't.
We have a whole lot of them walk-in trucks.
I messaged her. She's on a call right now.
Okay, she'll get back. She gonna.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, no problem.
Did you just mention that I had stopped by or something?
All right, yeah, she's available.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Cool.
That sounds great. Super. Thank you very much. Have a good one. You too.
So it appears the elusive Jane Fisher is at a different branch and not available, but we'll catch up with her later. For now, let's travel from the bank to the Goodwill, where Ira was last captured on video dropping off items of clothing and other things at the local drop-off center. You'll recall that there were varying and conflicting news reports of her movements after she left the bank. A majority of the reports had her going from the bank to the Goodwill and then finally to Jackson's Java, where she had worked to drop off a gift for friends, whereas other reports had her going from the bank directly to Jackson's Java and then finally to the Goodwill. So we'll trace the steps for the majority of the reports, going from the bank to the Goodwill, then to Jackson's Java. Of course, we're keeping track of the time it takes to travel and noting anything else peculiar we may find along the way.
Following the path of the timeline published by one of the major news outlets here in Charlotte. Right now it's 10:21. They published that she was seen here at 10:18. We'll start recording now. It's 10:21 and we will take off out of here at 10:22 just to kind of meet in the middle. We will follow the path that she took. And right now, we got the dash cam going. It's 10:22. We start out from the credit union, just like she did. Would have taken her a minute to get in the car. So we're probably a little bit early, but we will proceed accordingly.
And again, we're going from the credit union to the Goodwill. We're going to take the exact path mentioned in the article. Coming out of credit union, Chancellor's Place. She's coming from here, according to news reports, and she's going to the Goodwill. So she would have come out here. There's a little island in the middle to turn around. Presuming that that was always here. I suppose we can confirm that with a satellite image from Google. It was here. She would have been traveling up the street. For the semester at the time that this occurred in May, they were moving out, so it's kind of a transitional period. Check, 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 check. Sound levels on, dash cam recording. To my left is the main entrance to the university. Following the path the Era likely took, according to the news reports. Crossing John Kirk Drive. It's just down to the left, it was reported. Of that intersection, just down to the left, was where she lived off campus at the Edge Apartments, which may be relevant as we're following the tick-tock of her last moments. We are headed eastbound on University City Boulevard. We've passed the campus and now we're just going over Interstate 485. University City Boulevard is also referred to as Highway 49, so you might see that on the map if you're so inclined to follow along that way. So we go past 4085 just a little bit, and now we're coming up to an area where we can turn in here. Again, just retracing the steps that, to the best of our ability, we can presume or ascertain that she is reportedly to have taken. Now we're at the Goodwill, okay? And that took approximately 8 minutes. It's now 10:30, and you can see that our travel to the Goodwill was rather slow. So it seemed to have taken 8 minutes to get here. We do know that she got to the Goodwill with a carload full of things that she wanted to give away. The next place it was reported that she was at Jackson's Java at around 10:50. As you can see, the travel that we took was very casual, kind of a slow pace. So the question is, did she do something between the credit union and the Goodwill? Again, just following the tick, the talk. Head on over to the location of Jackson's Java. Here we go.
That insinuates this is disorganized in his other daily activities too. Lack of education, menial work, unemployment. So that dictates other type of things in his life also.
And somebody that's going to have a disorganized crime scene, you're saying that they didn't bring the materials with them there. In terms of a profile of a person, what type of person might that be?
Well, that's the person who committed an opportunistic type crime. There's two types that might fit that. that might be one that she may have known that got into a heated argument and it got out of hand and he killed her, or it could be a stranger, a juvenile that's part of that Charlotte crime area, and juvenile or somebody that's 21 or 22 that's got a lengthy juvenile record that's streetwise with crime, that's just walking the area and took advantage of because most crime is opportunistic. You see a vulnerable victim, you take advantage of it. In that deep woods down there with that single girl, that was a vulnerable victim, let me tell you. And so you take that, and I'm more leaning toward the latter, where you got a juvenile that's involved in this age 6 to 21 to 22 that attacked her down there, and he didn't bring anything with him to commit the crime because it's opportunistic. So that means that he's streetwise. Yeah, he's got a crime experience.
Okay.
If a loved one of mine were abducted, the first call I would make would be to the police. The second would be to Dr. Maurice Godwin, PhD. I'm reading a foreword from his book entitled Tracker, Hunting Down Serial Killers. Dr. Godwin specializes in investigative psychology, crime scene analysis, missing persons, and is a pioneer in geographic profiling. And he was the first American to obtain a doctorate degree in investigative psychology from the University of Liverpool in England. He has aided local, state, and law enforcement agencies and is a frequent commentator for the media in high-profile criminal cases.
See, the person tried to haphazardly get rid of the vehicle.
Okay.
And that's what that is. And I don't know why this suicide thing ever come into play. Who commits a suicide, using the car or whatever, then steps about 5 feet from the car and lays down?
Right.
I don't even know where that would even come into play.
Dr. Godwin was a consultant for CNN during the D.C. sniper terror and accurately predicted the target areas in Maryland and correctly contradicted other profilers about the triggering event. He was a forensic expert on the Up and Vanish podcast about the disappearance of Tara Grinstead from South Georgia, and currently is an expert advisor for the Hide and Seek podcast, which explores the 2009 disappearance of Nancy Moyer of Tenino, Washington. It was a stroke of luck to find out that Dr. Godwin maintains an office in North Carolina not far from Charlotte, and agreed to provide his initial impressions on this case based on the limited information available at the time. Of course, he warned that upon receiving further information and details about the case, those impressions may well change.
Somebody laid her down after she was dead. Laid her down about 5 or 6 feet. I don't know the exact distance, but it laid her down near the car on the embankment there after she was dead. They just laid her down beside where the car was at.
Pulling out of Harris-Houston Road, back onto Highway 49. That's the route that she took when she left the Goodwill. Went directly towards Highway 49 again. And the next place she was seen was at Jackson, Java, which is right down the road.
If you're going to have to guess at this stage, if we follow that line of thought that somebody laid her down, what would be the purpose in that?
Well, you have to understand, I call these effective type of killers, effective vehicle type killers. They use the victim as a vehicle to vent their rage and anger, their internal rage and anger on. The reason why they leave the body there is because everything is, they're so wrapped up emotionally into the crime and strangle her and whatever. What they do when they come out of that for just a second or two, then they're faced with trying to get away with not being discovered. And so what they do, they ram the car down there to try that didn't go down. So now they get away from the crime scene. She was dumped on the bank of the river just like the car was. There's nothing really any special importance of her being particularly there on the bank of the river. The car, I think, was just a haphazard attempt to try to get rid of it, and it just went wrong when it hit that tree and bit the front of the car and everything. It wouldn't go down, so they just run and left.
And you're saying, you indicated there that it looks as if somebody had laid her down there.
Yeah, I think it.
Okay. And you had, I think initially we had thought that there was a certain amount of staging. And why would that be? I mean, that's part of it, I would presume.
Well, I'm not seeing the close up of any of the body.
Right.
See, I need to see close up of the body to make that kind of statement.
Okay.
But
I will note that there's a Wendy's up on the side of the road here. I'm not sure how long it's been here, but it was reported that there was a half-eaten chicken wrap or something in her vehicle. It could have been, I'm wanting to say, in the trunk of the car. So it's a little bit unusual that is a, if she was a vegetarian, as I've heard. It's obviously unusual that there would be a half-eaten chicken wrap from Wendy's in her vehicle. Would indicate that perhaps she may have been with somebody that she knew. Stopped, got some Wendy's. What on earth would that be doing in the trunk, I presume? But Detective Terry had some comments on that. We'll discuss at the appropriate time. For now, we're just following the path back down 49 to Jackson, Java. The sights, the sounds, much like they were that day, the morning of May 5, 2008. You are along for the ride. Maybe somebody sees something that we didn't notice. Wasn't picked up the first time around. Here's John Kirk Drive again. Just to the right was the Edge Apartments where I believe she was living with Masha, her roommate. I have not confirmed that with corroborative evidence, but that was reported from at least one source. I always like to verify a source with another source. Corroboration. Makes sense from everything else I've heard, actually. She was living off campus the second year. There. Pardon the brakes. Do not try this at home, folks. Unless you're in Charlotte. Unless home is Charlotte, right here. And it doesn't really matter. You are home. I think we're not that far from Jackson's Java.
It was a quickie, done and out.
Right. Yeah. And that's what kind of perplexes me. Is that why they would take the extra time to pull the body out? You know what I mean? There's some sort of, if the body was in the car, or
because they're trying to haphazardly get rid of the car.
Right.
But it didn't work because they hit that damn tree.
Gotcha. So they may have been taking the body out to dump it in the river or send it downstream, or something like that, and they might have been interrupted by the jet skiers that were coming upriver. I suppose that's one. I guess if we were following that theory just initially, that the car was supposed to go in the water and everything was supposed to disappear. If it didn't, now it's like, well, let's get the body in the river at least, or something like that. For various reasons. I mean, do you think that's a possibility?
He tried to keep her in the car and try to send her in the car in the river.
In the car.
The car, that's right.
And when that doesn't happen, they go to plan B, something.
And see what starts happening now is panicking. The time seems to be speeding up a lot more when you're in a situation like that. So the best thing to do is just leave it all behind and just get out of there.
Right. Yeah. You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yes.
So it was.
Crossing Cameron Boulevard. And to my left is Town Center Plaza, within which Jackson's Java coffee shop. It's not here anymore. At that time it was here, so we're going to cross over the same island. Just to my right, actually, is the credit union that we came from before. Now we're turning into the plaza where Jackson's Java was, and it's 10:44. We pull in here, take a left, and we pull in here. So here we are. It's 10:45. Jackson's Java was somewhere to my right here. So assuming that people like to take the shortest route into the store, she probably would have parked somewhere right around here. Again, it's Monday morning. Parked, got out, walked inside, and it's 10:46. So.
Where was her purse at?
Well, you mean the one that the blue ribbon was taken from?
Was that her purse?
It was more like a handbag. I wouldn't necessarily call it a purse. It was more like a handbag.
From the Goodwill dropping off stuff to here, it took us roughly 11 minutes. on the way to the Goodwill from the credit union, which is really just across the street from here. It took about 8 minutes, so we took our time, and it seemed to take a little bit longer, so it was about 11 minutes. But in any case, it says she was seen there around 10:50. The exact terminology used was Yarmolenko stops at Jackson's job at 10:50 a.m. And that was taking 3 minutes longer on 49.
Right. And she was seen coming from, up there in the university area. One of her first stops that morning, or within the last hour, was at the bank. So,
Was the camera ever found?
The camera for the bank?
No, the camera from that she had in her hand.
There was a camera in the car. There was some film missing out of it, or they kind of assumed that somebody ripped the film out of the camera, but which could be. But I've had other camera specialists look at that camera and indicate that that's not necessarily true. You can advance that knob without having film in it, and it wasn't conclusive to them that somebody actually ripped the film out after 2 exposures. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But that was a thing, and that's because she was taking pictures down there, and she took a picture of something she wasn't supposed to, and somebody got really upset. It's like she had taken pictures of somebody doing something wrong, and they got highly upset and took the film out and killed her. What does that sound like to you?
Another thing you have to consider too is the bungee things. They were talking about them coming out of the trunk.
Yeah.
Well, how are you going to restrain a victim and use a car key to open a trunk and get those things out at the same time with just one person?
Right. So you're thinking it might have been 2 people.
Might have been 2 people
involved in that.
That's right.
That's interesting.
But what I'm working on, just like I did in that podcast, in that second Washington State case, I reviewed what I had, developed the criminal profile, and it was spot on. So, and that's what I'm going to do in this case too.